The purpose of this video is to critically identify the strengths and weaknesses and areas for improvement in my cinematography work. I plan on doing this by talking through the various parts of my film, starting with the opening shot. I like the shot to start with because of the background being out of focus and the title being in focus. But when the actor walks into shot, it would have been better if I had faded the title out and pulled focus to follow her as she walked across the bridge. The next few shots I would like to talk through are these. Firstly, using the camera to tell the viewer where the actor is walking, and in this case, I've shown a public footpath arrow on a post situated in the right third out of focus, and shown the character walking into shot in focus on the left third. Reading the frame from left to right, it explains to the viewer that the person is out walking on a public footpath. If I were to improve this shot in the future, I would pull focus from the actor to the arrow to better aid the story. This shot of the character walking from left of the frame to the centre towards the gate, I've blown my highlights, leaving no detail in them. This isn't what I wanted to achieve. To stop this from happening, closing up my aperture would have been an idea. However, I would then have lost the detail in the blacks and shadows, but using additive and reflected light could stop this. Further to closing my aperture, I would have lost my shallow depth of field, so the possibility of using a variable ND filter could have been an advantage, so I could take the light down approximately 2 to 3 stops and still be able to leave my aperture wide open to keep the shallow depth of field. This shot of the gate latch worked well for me, and I like it because of the shallow depth of field I achieved. The skin tones of the hand are on point, and I still have a good exposure for it overall. I'm still keeping to the movement and framing as the actor appears to be moving forward through each scene using the left to right method I've adopted. Moving to the next shot, the use of a camera pan adds quite a nice aesthetic to my film, and the speed of it matches the editing pace. An improvement I could make to it would be that I'd pull focus to the actress as she's walking, extending the shot and get rid of the medium close-up that follows it. Let's look at the next shot. I'm really happy with how this shot turned out. This is a moment the direction changes in my film. The actress stops moving forward, and the car, which is situated on the left third, is the reason why. Using the camera to emphasise this worked really well. I also think this shot shows that I can adjust my previous skills from the DSLR video production to digital film production by understanding the camera techniques I needed to utilise the available dynamic range on a Blackmagic cinema camera. The next sequence of shots is: this cut to a static medium close-up of my character is effective to show the curiosity she has towards the car, capturing her facial expression and physical movement, as well as bringing us into her personal space. To be more experimental with this, I could have used a slight push-in using a glide track or dolly to intensify the drama at this point that in turn could prompt the viewer into imagining how or what the character is feeling. I tried to experiment by following this with a handheld point-of-view shot. The aim was to show the immediate action of the character upon reacting to the car being there, engine running and door wide open. I think it could have worked better if I had added a shot of the character starting to walk towards the car, as the handheld movements don't match the character's stillness. Towards the end of the shot, I hadn't quite thought about the lighting for the inside of the car thoroughly, making it quite dark, but because I set the ASA to 400, the shadows and blacks haven't become noisy. To further improve this shot, I pull focus a little earlier when the character's hand moves into frame to turn off the ignition, so that I could shift the visual emphasis from the hand to the key. My next shot to talk through is this. What I notice first is the blown out highlights on the roof of the car, and then behind the character through the trees as the camera moves up. The handheld shot follows the character as she walks across to the coat on the floor to where the exposure looks better. I don't particularly like it, and upon reflection, I could have approached the shot from a different angle and made it into 2 separate shots to account for the different types of available lighting. The next shot I could improve on is this. The camera movement for this shot I like. However, because of being worried about the tight shooting ratio, I didn't do enough takes to get it perfect. The reasons for me not liking it are the pull focus wasn't done smoothly, and the handheld pedestal movement didn't move up far enough to get the character's head into shot. To improve the outcome of this next time, I would make sure that I watched it back on the monitor to ensure it was complete, and if not, do another take. The following close-up was to put emphasis on the narrative used in conjunction with the shot of the river and then back to the close-up again for a reaction, creating the Kuleshov effect. I gained a good depth of field separating the character from the background in the close-up. However, I dislike the shot of the river because it has no depth to it frame-wise. It just looks quite flat and bland, what with the water being too calm, which in turn doesn't warrant the reaction from the character in the next part of the close-up from before. On the contrary, I actually like the second part of the close-up because it captures the character's reaction. She steps back, creating a medium close-up, which puts emphasis on the physical movement. In the future, the linking shot needs to be more dramatic. A pushing could help this by intensifying the tension. This long shot reveals the car is gone, and it's too flat. The reason it looks flat is because I haven't added in any receding planes to add depth to the frame, meaning that there is nothing to focus on in the foreground or midground. I can get around this next time by setting up the frame better so that I can include a rack focus by taking the dynamic from the foreground, where the car was and now isn't, to then change the critical focus to the character in the background. In addition, I could have exposed to the right, then brought it back within the IRE scale in post, enabling me to get a better dynamic range, helping the shot to look less flat. To conclude, I am generally pleased with the outcome of this lighting and cinematography project. I feel there are various strengths that I have achieved. Firstly, the camera techniques I've used to an extent have come across how I wanted them to. Secondly, I have been able to gain a good overall average exposure, making the colour palette look even throughout because of the character's costume and the location. I believe that this is all down to the research I've done throughout, allowing me to gain an understanding of the impact that digital film technology has on filming, which I then utilised at all stages of this production. I feel my weaknesses for this project are firstly the major issue I had with missing out a couple of shots that are integral to my narrative. Further to this, I should have been more creative with some of the shots, using different angles and trying out different framing. Some of the technical aspects of using a camera, such as playing around with the shutter angle and using the variable ND filter a lot more, could have helped to get the aesthetics looking more pleasing. Lastly, I only used available lighting and didn't use it much to my advantage. I could have reflected some of it to pick out important parts in the frame, for example, the character's eyes in a close-up. I could have also used a flag for the parts that were too bright, for example, the highlights on the car. And for the darker shots in the film, I could have used additive lighting such as a portable lighting kit. However, due to the location being outside and in a field, this would have been difficult to achieve because of needing electricity. Being outside, it is difficult to get an even exposure through the film because British weather is always so unpredictable and ever-changing, resulting in me having to constantly change the aperture, which will in turn make the depth of field vary throughout the film as well. In the future, I will correct my areas for improvement by using my time more efficiently, by better planning and thoroughly assessing the locations before a shoot. This will help me to produce a higher standard of cinematography using the digital film techniques that I've gained over the course of this assessment.